And this is Grief Diaries. And tonight we have a very special guest, my dear friend Angie Cartwright. Angie is the founder of Grief the Unspoken, and many of you know and love her just as I do. And tonight we're going to talk about living with grief upon grief. Angie was born into a life of grief, and she was conceived in an alcoholic blackout when her mom was in an alcoholic blackout, and she never knew her father. At age 3, she and her sister were in a car accident, and Angie suffered a broken jaw, and her sister suffered brain damage. At age 5, Angie found her 11-month-old sister dead in her crib. The list goes on. An uncle died by suicide. Angie's husband died in a drunk-related accident. Through her teenage years, Angie was in foster care because of her mom's addiction issues. And it was really a life of grief upon grief. And we're going to talk about it tonight. If you have any questions, type them in and Angie can answer them for you. And let's get going. So welcome to the show, Angie.
Hi, Linda. It's great to be here with you tonight.
It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you and be here with Grief Unspoken family.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of our early days when we were doing, the radio show, and now, technology has allowed us to move right into people's homes.
Yes, here we are. Now they get to see our faces. Yes.
Yeah. So as we get going, our viewers can ask questions, and as they ask questions, I'll share them with you, Angie. We won't get to all of them.
Okay.
Feel free you can ask any question you want, and Angie can answer it if she wants to. So my first question is that you were born into a life of grief. You have known it your whole life. And now, as a mother and grandmother, you have encountered more grief. Where are you at today?
Well, and thank you, Linda. We as life goes on and, we're at a certain point in our lives and we tell our stories and share where we're at. The sad thing is that we're probably going to experience more loss. And so over the last few years, where I've been is I've experienced the loss of a father who chose to be a father. Which was a really special thing to me. He people have children and that's a wonderful thing. But I was probably 29 years old when this man said, "I want to be your father. I want to be your daddy," is exactly what he said to me. And so he chose me at 29, and we lost him to cancer this in the last 2 years. And then I also went through. I had a 14-year relationship with the husband, and now we're going through a divorce. And so, I've lost a husband in death, and to lose a husband in divorce now is what I've been dealing with. And then our family has been dealing with some addiction in our family. And those who know me know that I've dealt with addiction from a very young age and that I lost a mom to an accidental overdose.
Yeah.
And then here we are. So our family right now is going through some really tough grief with addiction that has hit our family.
That's a tough one. That's, affects many, many families. And that's a really tough one to live with. But going back to the divorce, as you and your husband, no one ever enters a marriage expecting to end it in divorce.
No.
So that's what happened. Did that trigger grief from the husband that you lost in the accident?
That's a great question. And, today I couldn't probably answer that question right at the very beginning. But now, having some time away or through this, it definitely has. I think the both are too interlinked. And, it's me as a whole woman connected with a man that I love. And there's loss there. And, both one was in death and one was in life, still living. And they both have, way different, what do you want to say, different levels there. Yeah. But they also have a lot of similarities there, and it's learning to live alone and learning to love yourself and learning to sometimes not connect the two, that they are separate. And
and it's a living loss. And, not only do you lose the relationship, but you also lose, and you've said this before in grief over the death of your mom and now the death of the man that was your father in this life. When we lose someone, we also lose the future with that person.
I have it.
The loss of the relationship. And then also with divorce, and also when you lose a spouse, you lose the income. You lose, so much more, oftentimes health insurance. So much more than just the relationship. And so, with a divorce, it's a living loss that you're going through right now. And coupled with the loss of your dad within the last year, it's just one thing after another. And so what has brought you comfort? This has been a really challenging year. And it's, it feels sometimes like things are coming at you from different angles. What has brought you comfort?
There are many. I think, staying within the grief community has been one. I look back and think, thank God that I had started this and started Grief the Unspoken and started National Grief Awareness Day, because, I would sit there different days and, it had already been built. And so I was able to kind of just delve into that and use the resources that had already been made. And so that brought a comfort that I would have never had before.
Right.
And then I think, close friends, some friends that, just they know grief very well, and they are definitely there for me on the good days, the bad days, and the days that I can't be. The days that I can't be that good friend, the days that I cannot be, active in their lives, that they understand it's not about them and that I'm going to be okay. I'm just grieving,
Right.
And well, I did see.
You have a lot of love that's coming your way. A lot of comments from people. So
good. I did want to say that I did talk about a quote, and it's, we grieve the past, the future, and the now. A human being is one more moment in time, and we just talked about that. And so, with the divorce, and that's with the husband with death, how are they alike? Well, the futures were completely affected by that. The past were both different. And the now is that, I'm by myself. And so learning to live alone is a huge thing. You hear it from the widows, and when I was a widow, it was the same thing, fixing lights, doing this, doing that, financial stability, just all those things. So I guess I'm repeating that a little bit, but it is so true that we grieve the past, the future, and the now, because a human being is just made up of so many elements in that relationship. It's not just, in that moment when they pass.
Right. And, I think that's one of the elements of spouse loss, is that many people, in society, we think, oh, she lost her husband, or, oh, he lost his wife, but they don't realize all the other dynamics that come into play. Just as you said, who's going to clean off the roof now? That kind of thing. And for a husband who loses a wife, he loses his partner, the person who cared for him, because the women tend to be the caretakers, right? Yeah. And, usually they cook all the meals and that kind of thing, and do the laundry and such. And a man is suddenly left without that. So I'm going to take a look here. So Terry Wirtz says, lost my parents a year apart. My husband of 33 years left me, no money, no insurance, and so alone in life. So do you have any thoughts for Terry?
That, just reading that just brings tears to my eyes. That's exactly what the show's about tonight.
It is.
That's what the show's about tonight, is those compounded loss upon loss upon loss. And who do you grieve first? Who do you grieve second? What am I feeling now? And it's kind of like you're just taking that next step, kind of blinded in the fog of trying to maybe pay that bill, or go to the grocery store, or reminding to brush your teeth, or reminding yourself to, and even if you even do any of that. Right. So, my hope to her is that she knows that there's more people that understand that and that can relate to those feelings. And I'm glad that she's here tonight with us. And I hope that she could maybe join one of our very, many free grief group support groups that would like to surround her with love.
Yeah, tonight. You can address her right now. She's watching. And so feel free to talk directly to her. I'm going to look at more comments coming in. Ashley Jeffrey asking for prayers for Gail Hart. She lost her son a few days ago. She is totally lost without him. Ashley, we will pray for
yes,
Gail.
Pray, yeah.
Close to our heart. I lost a child, and so there's no words and to describe that kind of loss. But if I can offer one thing, it's that hold on to the idea that hope can be restored. Because if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. And so if you,
tell them just a little bit about your loss there, Linda, if you could do that.
I sure can. I wanted to ask a question from Jenny Hansen. And she says, why do I dream of my granddad who passed away 3 years ago? In my dream, I know he's dead, but I question why he's there. It's always me as a child in the dream. He was basically my dad, so it hurt so much when he passed. And so, dreams is really interesting.
They really are.
And so, have you dreamt of your dad, Ange, since he died?
No, I haven't yet. And this is a very wide topic. I love listening about dreams and dream interpretation. Yep. And I guess my question to you would be, what's the name again?
Allie? Sorry.
That's okay.
Jenny Hansen.
Jenny?
Yeah, Jenny.
Okay, sorry. Jenny, is that what in the dream, is it bringing you comfort? Are you scared? What kind of feelings is it bringing you? Because I think, I've had dreams where my loved ones, it was very, very scary, and I was pushing away the dream, and I'm like, why are you in my, here? I know you're gone. I know you're dead. And then in some other dreams, they were weird looking and they didn't seem right, but they brought the most comfort to me. And so some dreams, I think, bring comfort, and some I think we're trying to find our way. Subconsciously, we're trying to find our way through grief. And that's how we do that. I would definitely encourage you to look up groups on Facebook. There's groups for people who deal with dreaming and grief together, groups. And I had a friend, I could find him, I think I can, and get a group link on my post under here tonight if I can find it. But I really took a lot of comfort in reading that in that group, because I had a bad dream about my mom the very first time after her overdose. And I was walking in the kitchen, and she was standing there with all these lovely ladies in her family. And I'm just like, why are you here? You're dead. Why are you here? You're dead. Things like that. Mm-hmm. And then I hadn't dreamt of her since at that for a long time. And so I was so afraid that I had scared her away. And of course I got comforted in the dream group that was not the truth, that she'll be back when she's supposed to be. But that I was able to express that in that dream group. I think groups are really neat.
The groups, all of the groups, whether it's a support group like the Compassionate Friends or Miss Foundation, Grief Parents USA, or a widow support group or sibling loss, a grandparent loss, whatever it may be, a support group, whether in person or online, really, really helps people feel less isolated. And that's really important in the grief process, to feel like those people, that you're understood. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that. But I want to share that I've dreamt of my daughter, Allie, quite a few times since she passed 9 years ago. And in each of the dreams, she's sitting next to me, and I know she's there, but people around me can't see her. They don't know she's there.
But you can.
I know she's there. And so in the dream, it's her way of saying, Mom, I'm always with you. Even if people around don't see me, I'm always with you. And so, as much as the dreams are bittersweet,
yes.
They're bittersweet because they're a reminder that she's not here physically, and I can't, smell her hair, give her a hug, that kind of thing. But it's also comforting to know that she is with me. And yes. I know that without a shadow of a doubt. So dreams are such a great topic in the grief world. So Candy Kernan Guilfoy says, lost my dad when I was 2, 4 days after my birthday. Lost my grandma in 2000. Lost my daughter in 2011 of an overdose. And sorry, the comment just went down. I lost my daughter in 2011 of an overdose. Lost her other grandpa in April 2015, and her mom in 2015. And she was very alone.
Are you breathing?
Yeah, so why don't you address that? Because you have a similar history. That is your life of losing relative after relative after relative and such. So why don't you address that question with Kathy?
Well, Kathy, my heart goes out to you tonight, and I my first thought was, are you breathing? Just filling your chest and remembering to take that next breath, and not having all the pressure on you to be a certain way, to do certain things. It goes back, I call it the basics of grief. When it's so raw like that, and you've just lost one person after another, who you're grieving, who's next, am I grieving this person? Am I grieving that person? Or did this person's grief block this person's grief? I mean, there's so many different there's a lot of expectations, or I would say guilt, that I experienced because I was so lost in who I was grieving, what I was grieving, and why I wasn't grieving maybe more this person than that person. And some of the losses overtook other losses. And what I had to finally come to know and accept and be okay with is that whatever was bringing it up, whatever was coming up for that moment or that day, was just okay. It was just okay for whatever was coming up. If it was mom, it was mom. If it was my husband, it was my husband. And to try, and I know it's hard, but trying not to judge it and putting more pressure on yourself to be a certain way. And when you have a lot of compounded losses, even one loss changes a person forever.
Yeah. Yep.
Even one loss, it completely changes your whole who you are, what you are, how you think, how you see, how you feel, how you believe. Then let's add compounded losses on top of that. Just keep adding them, And so you can get really lost and you can lose that footing, Linda, that you talk about. Yeah. And Linda, if you wanted to talk about finding your footing, I think that you really, I love the way you talk about that and express it. Could you explain that a little bit more to her?
Yeah, I can. And I'm glad you brought that up. I lost my daughter in a car accident in 2009. She was 15 years old and she was a backseat passenger. And, the next 2.5 years of my life are a fog. I don't remember them. And then just as I was finding my footing, my dearly beloved, dear sweet hubby, 46 years old, suffered a major stroke. It left him paralyzed, unable to walk, talk, read, write. And so once again, I was thrust into that adrenaline, that autopilot of just doing like a robot.
Yeah.
And finding my footing was a series of steps. And the first thing is that I decided that if I was going to be sitting in the belly of hell, because I felt like I was in hell, that I was going to fight to find a way out, because I saw that other people who had been through profound loss had found joy again in life. And I remember thinking, if they can do it, it can be done. And that gave me hope. And so the series of steps, I call it finding the sunrise, and it has to do with the dream that I had. And the series of steps to finding your footing, I actually will be posting on griefdiaries.com later tonight. And it is the handout of what I did. And actually, I'll give it to you to post on GTU.
Okay. Thank you.
It's the series of steps that I took to find joy again in my life. And I just want to say, though, that it's not one size fits all.
No.
So, create your toolbox and add any tool you can to it, and then pick out the ones that work for you. But also, you have to fight. to restore hope. You have to be proactive. Okay.
That's one of my quotes.
So let me ask you this. You've undergone surgeries and things like that. What do they always tell you after you've been through a surgery?
Yeah, they want you to get up and exercise.
Well, they take care of yourself.
And take care of yourself.
Yeah. And so with grief, it's the same thing. You've got to take care of yourself.
Put yourself in a trauma room.
You've got to give yourself the time to heal. Mm-hmm. You have to allow yourself to say, you know what? I'm grieving and I'm broken.
Exactly.
And I don't know when I'm going to be okay. You have to be in that moment of just saying, this is what happens when you lose someone you love. Like, I just lost someone I love. This is my life right now. It's okay to do that. The rebuilding of self comes, but I think the very first step, that first baby step, and Angie, you and I've talked about this, the very first baby step is validating your grief.
It is. And and like you said, that there's not one that fits all. No. And so me and Linda are talking tonight about maybe these suggestions. And I tell you that when I was sitting there new in grief or raw grief, there's no way some of them that I could have even fathomed, held on to, pictured in my life, rolled my eyes at, did all that stuff. But I remember there came a day, and I believe one thing, there'll come a time in each person's journey where you're either going to fight or you're going to quit. And I remember sitting on the edge of the bed one time, and I remember thinking, when I feel better, I'll do this, or when I feel better, I'll do that. And just hopeless, just real hopeless. And, I ended up writing a little quote about it that said, hope never, it was about hope. And it said that, I was waiting for hope to come and it never did. I finally figured out I had to go get it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're talking about with these tools is going to get hope is sometimes taking that dang walk out in the sun that I didn't want to take. Yeah. Sometimes it's going from the bed to the couch, finally getting out of the bedroom for 15 minutes. Yeah. Sometimes and finally taking that bath that you didn't want to take, I mean, those are baby steps, but that's where you're at, when your hair is a mess and you get, and you haven't been there for a while. That's a big step when it's raw grief, and that's the basics.
Yep. Each one of those steps don't fix the grief.
No, it doesn't.
It's a process. It's a process of, just as I've said, rebuilding of self. It's a process, but the steps do help to bring comfort along the way.
Yeah, they do.
The cure for grief, it's been around since the beginning of mankind, but it's still it's such an impactful event in our life that it reshapes who we are. Yes, and it's kind of like you take this, I don't know, think of a lump of clay, in order for it to turn into something useful and beautiful, you have to thrust it into the fire, right? Into the kiln. Yeah. And only then does it come out where, and it kind of reminds me of that with grief. That's kind of where you feel like you've been thrust into the fire. When you come out, it's, you have a decision to make. And I think, that's really important that you said that, Ange, that you've got a decision to make. You can either, fight for it or just sit there and, a lot of people.
And I did. I'll tell you, there's many days I sat.
I did.
And there were some days that I gave up and I ended up going into the hospitals.
Right.
And I was in the hospitals, and I'm not putting anybody down for going to the hospital, because if you're going to the hospital, you're not giving up.
That's
I was
right.
Here's the giving up point, hospital. Okay, so I'm going to the hospital, and I don't feel ashamed about it. I'd go back there today if I have to, and I know I'm at my limitation. And I'm not able to function whatsoever. I have no shame in going to the hospital and taking my body in there, my mind, body, and soul in there, and taking that break and that air in and out, breathing in and out, barely.
Right. Yes. And that is a tool, is that you've got the hospital to add to your toolbox. So if you need it, don't hesitate to pull that out. That's right. There's no shame in it. And also I want to address too, Ange, you talked about that some days we did give up, and the key there is that some days. And so, it's it's knowing, okay, today I can't do it, but tomorrow I'm going to try again.
I'm going to try to get in that bathtub.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Those are big things. I remember the first time I actually shaved my legs after my loss. Now I can look back and giggle at it because Mom's been gone for 6 years. I might still have a mom day and won't be able to talk about it. I don't know. But today, right now, at this time, I can giggle about it because, the legs, the hair on the legs were pretty dang too long, Linda. And I didn't care. I really didn't care. But I started caring for some reason. I don't know what happened. But what happened is I started crying really hard and there were people around and it pushed me in the shower. That's what happened.
Okay.
And I ended up taking a shower. And I remember getting out and going to my room and thinking, I feel better. Now, my heart's still broken.
Right.
But I felt like I had done something because when they die, we die. When we lose somebody, we're in death ourselves. We're feeling like we've died. I don't know how many people I've heard say the day she died, the day they died, I died. And it's the same with me. A piece of me dies, if not all of me. Yep. And so that water was very refreshing. And just taking that action revived me a little bit.
Well, and when we do something for ourselves that feels good, it doesn't heal the hurt, but it's a reminder that not all pleasure is lost. And that's actually one of the steps in finding the sunrise that I'll post later tonight on diaries.com is doing stuff for yourself that feels good. And what I mean by that is, have you ever got a really fuzzy sweater and you put it on and you go, oh my gosh, this feels so good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or fuzzy socks. And you think,
this fuzzy socks about saved your life.
Yes, I did.
I know that story.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of fuzzy socks. But it's that sensation, one of your 5 senses, experiencing pleasure, even if your heart is so full of pain.
And you almost have to make yourself do it.
Yeah.
You almost have sometimes you have to almost make yourself do it. You're like rolling your eyes the whole way, guys.
Yeah. But that's the fighting for it. Fighting for it. Okay, so let's see. You've got lots of comments here, Ange. Okay, so Kara Moore is writing a comment, and I want to talk about this because it's important. Kara, you wrote a comment to someone else who posted something. You said, Tammy, I feel the same way. I just need that sign so badly. And so I don't see Tammy's comment, but Angie, do you want to talk about what Kara posted about wanting to, needing that sign so badly? Did you have signs from her after she passed?
Yes, I did. I wanted that sign so badly, and I am a, what do they call me when you don't believe? What is that? A skeptic?
Oh, skeptic.
Is that what we're talking about? Like having signs from our loved ones?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a skeptic, and I'm really struggling with my mom, and I was in pool therapy at the time, and I hadn't had a sign of anything. And short story, a little bit back. I got to go back a minute. When we were at the funeral home, I'd put a rock in my mom's coffin, and my mom, I'm the oldest of 7 kids, and so my mom had always called me her rock, and it isn't something that I liked all the time. If you knew more about my story, you might understand why, but I put that rock in there, not really, kind of grudgingly. I put that rock in there, and that's just how I'm being honest. That's just how I felt about it, but I put it in there because that was our connection. So let's speed it up to this time I'm in pool therapy, and I've not had a sign. And I'm kind of I was kind of at that time in that angry mode and hadn't seen a sign, and just was like, oh, there's a butterfly. Yeah, right. That's my mom. I was just kind of there. Next thing I know, I'm in pool therapy at the YMCA, and I get out. I don't own a certain locker. I've been going every week, and I haven't picked out certain numbers or anything like that. So there's nothing to that. And I'm getting changed and getting my clothes on. I'm done with the therapy, and I go to grab my bag for the gym, and then my purse, and I pick it up, and underneath that is a rock. And I'm not talking a pebble or anything like that. I'm talking about a rock. And a lady told me one time, she said, that's your mom giving it back to you to let you know. I don't know when you'll receive your sign. I don't know. And I don't know. A lot of times people say, you have kind of this understanding between you and your loved one, like your loved one loves certain things. And so when you see those certain things, that's them.
Yeah.
Did Allie have certain thing? Is there a thing between you and Allie? Isn't it?
Well, I have a funny story about a rock too.
You do.
Allie used to paint rocks blue, yes, and then put around the property. She always said she was leaving them for the fairies, and I didn't mind that she was blue. And so one day after the accident, Allie is one of 4 kids. She was our 3rd child out of 4. And one day after the accident, I don't know, it might have been 2-3 years. And our older son came over, and he had this big Chevy pickup, and he left it running, but he parked it, and he hopped out for 2 minutes to get something. And so he left the truck running, hopped out, hopped back in, and as soon as he hopped back in, he felt a bulge underneath the car mat that wasn't there 2 minutes before when he hopped out. And so he lifted up the mat, and underneath was one of Allie's blue rocks.
Wow.
So, and same thing. These were not, little, driveway gravel. These were rocks that she painted blue.
Specific,
and, isn't that cool?
Now I've had a butterfly land on my hand and do that with my finger. And my mom, before she passed, there was about 3 weeks before my mom passed. I did not know she was going to pass. And this butterfly landed on her. And I actually had this deep feeling that God was going to come get her. And I don't know why. It just came over me. And I never shared that with her. And that specific day, she had a butterfly that had got on her and was sitting on her shoulder and was on her finger and all of that. Now, I've had experiences with that, with the butterfly landing on my finger and letting it go from finger to finger and actually being there with me. And those times like that, you just don't make up,
You don't make up, yeah. I want to tell you one more sign, and then I want to read a comment for you.
Okay.
I work 12 to 18-hour days. And,
yes, I know.
Yes. And so my way of
decompressing, the break, guys.
My way of decompressing at the end of a day is to play games on my iPad, and word games specifically. Mm-hmm. And I play against my sister. I play against a couple of different people. And one night I sat down and I opened it up to begin a fresh game. And there on the board, the game on my iPad, were 3 tiles only, and they spelled my daughter's name, Allie. A-L. And that was it. And so it's like you can't make that stuff up, right? And
no, yeah.
But I want to pass on what Tanya Jane Barrett says. She says, "I lost twins, can't get through a day. It was 2003, and I've had no sign." And so if you want to address that really quick, why she's not had a sign, and then I want to share the next one under her for you. So it's been, for Tanya, it's been 15 years since she's had no sign.
15 years and had no sign. I don't know if we can ask another question to her. Has she had any dreams, about her twins?
Right, because signs come in many forms.
They come in many forms. Yeah. Sometimes the signs are music. Mm-hmm. The songs that, even songs that might not be songs that were related necessarily to, around their birth or that time. But songs that when you hear them, they really bring back the feelings of them, like very much so, the really strong feelings. I'd ask to, again, get into a group that has signs. I know that we have groups like that for people who have lost loved ones and there with signs, and there are people in there that haven't had signs. And what I'm seeing is a lot of them didn't know that they had gotten a sign. Right. They didn't know.
It was a sign. Yeah.
It also is based kind of, I think, because, I went a while with, like I said, being, there's people that are really desperate for the sign. And then there's people who, the skeptic person's, it's got to be a really good sign. I'm not a professional on signs. I can tell you, though, that those groups, again, Those people in there, they know what they're talking about. And one of the things that I know from reading and being involved in the group is that sometimes we miss the signs.
That's right. One of the groups on Facebook that I'm aware of is by my good friend Christine Dominiak, who does a group, Prayer Wave for after-death communication.
And that's one of the links I think we should maybe post.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to pass on this comment, and this is really important. Giovanna Cuff, she says, I lost my husband 4 years ago, and I am just waiting to die. And, I want to say something, and then, Angie, I want you to reply. Giovanna, after I lost my daughter, I wanted to die too. And that is something that when you've had a profound loss, many people experience that. And it's something that we don't talk about enough because there's a lot of shame with that. And especially when you hear about suicide, in today's world. And so why it's important to talk about it is because after my daughter died, people would say, you've got other children, you've got a husband, you've got family. And I did. But the pain of losing one was so great, I didn't think I could survive. And I didn't know if I wanted to survive. I didn't have an active suicidal plan. So, no true suicidal ideation because I hadn't thought it through. I just know I didn't want to wake up. And so I just want to throw it out to you is that it's common to feel that way. But what's important is that you don't act on it, because I want you to know that even though right now you feel like you're just waiting to die, it does, grief has a way of changing us. And over that process, hope can be restored. And I'm just going to use myself as an example, and there's nothing special about me, is that it's been 9 years and my life has had the color and the beauty and the joy return to it. And does that mean that I've forgotten about my daughter or the grief is gone? No. It means that the human heart can hold joy at the same time as sorrow. And that's really important to understand as a concept of that I embrace moments of joy. I allow moments of joy and I look for moments of joy because that can help to balance the sadness. I will always have sadness in my heart for my daughter. There's no words to describe losing a child. I've not lost a spouse, so I can't speak of that. Thankfully, my husband survived the stroke, and I still have him. And he's made a very good recovery, not full recovery, but, as I say, as long as his arms are around me, all's right with my world. But with regards to losing a child, it's not something you get over, but you do learn to embrace moments of joy. And I think that that's really important. And so right now you feel like you're just waiting to die, Giovanna, but just hang on to the idea that hope can be restored, because if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. So Ange, what's your thought on that?
Well, ditto, Linda, you did really answer that really well. And is it Giovanni?
Giovanna. And so when you lost your husband.
Yeah. And I'm going to go back to the death of my husband.
Yes.
The death of my husband, he died in 1996. And I tell you, I wanted to die every day. And I tried different ways of dying. I used alcohol to numb the pain. I was hopeless and empty on the inside, very depressed. Hospitalized probably 2 or 3 times, I think. It could have been more because it was a very foggy time for me.
Right.
He was in the car with me and I was passenger and he was the driver. And it was a really ugly and dark time. And what I can tell you about how did that change? I think it's about what actions that I took that are probably vital to us not dying. And it's easier said than done. There is hope, but how do I get from, absolute darkness to some hope? How do I bridge that? And I think the first step is you typed it, you posted it tonight, You got it out of yourself, and that's part of it. It's getting it out of yourself and letting people know how you really feel, and you really need to be heard. And I heard you tonight, and me and Linda are here to validate that and let you know that if you are in trouble and you need help tonight, we could get you that help if we need to. Yep. Like I had talked about earlier, there's nothing wrong with the hospital, nothing wrong with going in there. They're amazing people, and they handle widows and people who are in deep grief all the time. And I needed that extra care. I needed that extra care around me. I needed the world to slow down. I needed that break for myself. But I think the other thing is I had to choose to live. And, and that's something that's not, you can choose to live and not like it, I mean, I didn't have a high opinion of living. I really didn't, it wasn't highly popular in my life at that time. But, I chose to live, and really what it was is I had chose to fight. And to fight for life it is not an easy thing to do. We're down in this darkness, this abyss of grief, and we're like climbing this ladder out of hell. And then, grief can pull you back down. And I think that's why we need a community around us to pull us up. I don't know where your friends are in your life. And if you've not been honest with them, I mean, maybe it's time. If you haven't been able to seek out a counselor, maybe it's time. If you haven't gotten any groups, maybe on social media, maybe it's time. And if all of those things seem to not work very well, give it some time.
That's really good advice. And I think, when you're moving through life and you feel dead and you're just waiting to die,
yes,
it's maybe fighting to want to live. And the way to do
for that,
find moments of joy. Allow yourself to laugh at a funny movie. Go on YouTube and watch all the funny videos there. Allow yourself to laugh.
Sometimes what I really enjoyed was doing what the world told me not to do.
What was that?
I enjoyed listening to the music that my husband and I listened to. I enjoyed looking at pictures. Right. I enjoyed doing the things that me and him used to do. But see, we have a world that is the way they see grief is, oh, don't look at the pictures. It just makes you sad. Or don't listen to that music. It's just going to make you sadder, and when and that's not true. You're going to grieve anyway. So if you want to listen to some music that you and your husband shared, by gosh, turn it up and have, and cry as long as you want, because that's the stuff that we want to do. Grief tells you what you want to do. It really does. It's like I wanted to listen. I want to look at pictures and turn on the music, so I did. And what I had was a big crying session of crying, and I can probably hardly move my body, dehydrated from it.
Right.
But I had done something, and it passed.
Right.
And that night, I was able to eat a little bit of dinner, and I just fell asleep. And you know what I did? I had done what I wanted to do, as long as it wasn't harming me.
Yep. And I think that's important. You're validating your.
Yeah. I want to listen to that music and see. In my ear for a long time, I'd hide stuff like that because people would say, "Oh, you don't need to be looking at those pictures. You don't need to be listening to that music. It's just making it worse. It's just making you sadder." No, it wasn't.
Instinctively, you know what you need to do.
Yeah, our bodies will tell us what we want to do.
Right.
You want to eat that cheesecake, Linda? Yes, I do.
Yes, I do. Jesus, please. Okay, so I want to. There was a really. Okay, where did it go? It was okay.
79 comments. That's what my thing says.
Carolyn Cardwell Hendricks says, "I wish I could get the death of my husband's suicide out of my head. He died in front of me." How do you get that out of your head? And I'm that's a really tough question. I appreciate Carolyn being so brave to post that. And I want to address it because, Angie, you found your sister.
Yes, I did.
And, can you speak to that? Because there are some people who grieve the loss of a loved one who witnessed it. And so, or witness finding their body. What do you have to say to Carolyn about that?
Carolyn, thank you for sharing, first of all and foremost, and sending you hugs tonight. Looking at, to this day, I found my sister. She was 11 months old, and she died in her bassinet, and to this day, I can still see her body. And when I was younger, it was worse. And one of the things is that I'm not a professional on this, but my experience is that I finally had to I kind of figured it out on my own, really, and then I got it validated, was that I had PTSD from it. And I didn't realize that I had PTSD from that I didn't just have grief or depression or anything like that, but that I had literally had PTSD, and that I literally needed to be treating that. Yeah. And I wasn't treating it for a very long time. And for PTSD, there's a lot of different ways to treat it. And I don't know if you've tried that or not. And some people say, oh, I've tried it and it didn't work. You know what? Get a new person. Because I'll tell you, there are good people out there. I'm working with one right now, and they're amazing. And and if they say take some medicine and you're for that, then try it. You're going to hear people tell you shouldn't take medication. Really, this is your journey. And if you're really against medication, you can let them know that, and they'll respect that too, and they'll still help you. But I always say, if you find somebody that, go find somebody that is truly deals with PTSD, and let them in. Let them in.
Very important. And I want to reiterate that, because if you've had a heart attack, you're not going to go see your general practitioner to manage it. You're going to be
nor your gynecologist. No,
a specialist. And PTSD, it requires specialized care, and it can
in your loved one's body like that requires special care.
Yeah. And if you don't like one practitioner, there are others. So
if you get treated badly, fire them and move to the next one.
Yeah, that's right. So, okay. Let's see. There was another one here. Sorry, just bear with me.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. I could do this all night.
I know you can. Okay, so Michelle Hobart Gray says, what is one to do when living is so lonely and hard? My support system is bare. And I think it's really important to talk about when someone feels like they don't have a support system. So, Ange, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm living that right now. I've had a relationship. I was with a man for 14 years, and it brings tears to me, because I feel for you and I understand that loneliness. I really, for myself, besides the grief community, having you guys and reaching out to you guys, I had to find a few friends that I could hang out with. There is some PTSD actually involved in being alone and being left alone, because it's a loss and you don't have anybody around you. And so one of my biggest suggestions that has worked for me is, I have like 3 women that I really trust that I go to when I'm struggling, and I let, they kind of know, and I don't always explain it to them. We've even had slumber parties, just mini slumber parties. I'm 44 years old. Well, going to be 45. And, they've popped popcorn for me and made me some chocolate, this or that, and they didn't ask a lot of questions. They just kind of knew. If you can find one good friend, and the thing is my part is I got to let them know. Friends can't help me if I don't let them know. And I'm not saying, some people are in a position where they don't have a lot of friends, and that's when I encourage you to, join grief groups, whether it's in your community, which is better, and then you can expand out into social media and get connected in that way. And hopefully, you can start to grow relations We need people. What is your thought on that when you don't have people around you? I mean, think about that, Linda. I mean, when you wouldn't have people around you, what would you suggest?
Well, I think, that's a really good question. But I think in today's age, with technology, isolation is something that we don't have to be isolated like, our older generations did. And thanks to social media, we can connect with others on any topic in the world, including grief. And so, my first thought is join a support group. And the support group can be through your hospital, through a church, through, again, a local chapter of any one of the big bereavement organizations. A quick Google search will reveal what's in your area. But I think it's very important to surround yourself with people who walk that same journey. Yes. Because that alone, even if you have nothing else in common with them, just being with them and having to go there once a month or once a week, or, whatever the schedule is, gets you out of the house. So it's less isolating, but also connecting with others online. These groups that, Grief the Unspoken, Angie, you've got many groups that are closed. And so those of you who are watching tonight who don't know those closed groups, and how can they find out? Because I know that you've got, over 20 of them for different types of bosses. How do they find their way to one of those groups?
Okay, right here on Grief the Unspoken page, if you come to the page and you scroll down, you'll see groups. It'll say groups on it. I don't remember because I'm not looking at my page right now to tell you which side of the page it's on. Facebook changed our whole Facebook platform, so it looks a little bit different. But I can post up our group links. I would like to tell a quick story.
Yeah, please.
In one of my groups, it's called Loss of Fiance, because these are people that are not married, so they weren't widowed. And so there's a group that came about and actually, came to me during the time I was forming these groups saying, we weren't married yet. And there was a need for that kind of group. Well, what happened in that group, nothing that I did, I just put the group together, but these people started over periods of months, started talking to each other, and, and these women came together. Next thing you know, I'm getting pictures from Florida. They're sending me because they went on trips and stuff, and they've met they've met like 3 different times, and I'll get pictures, hey, we're in here and we're here, and it just brings tears to my eyes to see that happening. And, I and my groups don't put on trips or anything like that. That's something that the group members themselves decided, hey, I really relate with you. No, I really relate with you, and I relate with you. You guys want to go on a trip? And that's kind of what happened in that group. And I've seen it happen several different times in my groups, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Okay,
but they can find the group that they need. Going to Grief the Unspoken's main page. And if you still don't see it, send a message, and one of Angie or one of our admins will respond and get you into the group. And there's also many other Facebook groups. Some of them are closed, some of them are secret, some of them are open. And so, again, it's getting proactive, taking that baby step to surround yourself with people who share your journey, because they get you. They speak your language.
Yes, they do.
It's important to surround yourself with people that you feel safe with.
Exactly.
And no question's going to be too crazy or out there or what have you. So that's my thoughts with isolation. Thankfully, grief, it does feel isolating. I think everyone would say, that's how I felt.
It's one of the biggest, It's one of the biggest problems.
Right. But there is support out there. You just have
in the isolation too, some of it's chosen. We don't want to be around a lot of people, but we do want to talk to people you get to a point where you're trying to talk to people around you, and they're saying all those cliches that I talk a lot about when I'm talking about grief awareness stuff. And so we shut down thinking that, there's no one to talk to. And I'm really getting sick and tired of hearing people say things like, well, you just need to get over it and you need to move on. And so in our grief groups, that stuff doesn't go on. And in fact, if we have a member come in and they say things like, you shouldn't be so sad, or you need to get over it, they are promptly deleted, because we hear enough of that in the world today.
That's right. That's right. So Ange, it's about that time to wrap it up. I know you
asked
long, and so we will do this again. And I would love to. The comments and the questions. Ange, I know you'll be able to look at them when we're done here, because you'll see them posted on your GTU page. And so thank you for joining me tonight. And let's do this again, because I think that, people posting the different comments and the questions is really helpful to everyone, because it gives us a place to talk about it and to share the different experiences. And I think that that's really important. So thank you very much. And if someone wants to contact you, where do they go?
It's National Grief Awareness Day at gmail.com.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. And for those of you who want to read the baby steps that I took to restore hope to my life, called Finding the Sunrise, I will be posting that on griefdiaries.com here in just a little bit. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and we will see you next time. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.